Hi, I'm Edda, and this is Beauty Flip, where each and every week I show ordinary people what's so extraordinary about them. Today we're looking at manifesting, and maybe what's more powerful than that. Let's dive right in, shall we?
Hey all, so happy to be with you today. So we have been looking at some really cool things. We've been looking at finding the puzzle pieces of who you are and following the energy of things. And I just want to start with today, letting you know that you are just living, walking, talking grace. Well, not all the time, because we forget that we're like grace, that we are of grace, that we are divine. Yeah, I know. You're like, yeah, you already told me that. But here's the thing. I really want you to just sit with me for a moment and be like, what if, so say these words to yourself, what if I lived my life following the energy of things with the intent to find the most beautiful, positive, joyful outcomes? You know, when I think of manifesting in its most beautiful forms, I actually coach people, be careful what you ask for, because guess what? You just might get it. And truth be told, our little noggin is all full of sorts of crazy little kooky mistaken beliefs. Yeah, it is. And so unfortunately, when we manifest, we're actually human-festing. By that, what I mean is we take our little tiny little noggin and what we think is like the perfect thing that will make us happy. And if you all remember, Billie Eilish and humans don't know what makes them happy. But when we are manifesting, we are like, I know what's going to make me happy. I am going to manifest the job. I'm going to manifest the man. I'm going to manifest the promotion. I'm going to manifest being thin. I'm going to manifest. You name it. We're all out there and we're all like, open up, changing energy. Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do the secret. Let's do the manifest. Let's do. All of that. Good. I guess good. But what I have discovered, even in the manifesting world, is often we have too small of a perspective because we are only humans. And so when we have a small perspective, we literally might be dialing it up to the divine. Use whatever word you want, God, higher spirit, the spirit of things, the divine qualities of life, whatevs. But we're like, hi, on our phones. Hi, the divine, I want to manifest job, boyfriend, lover, partner, career, thinness, outfit, house, location, etc. We're putting it all in our little, if you will, almost like Uber Eats kind of world. And we're just like sending that up as if it's an order to be taken. And yes, we all have free will, and you can manifest whatever you want, not going there, not trying to tell you no. But what I know when I follow the energy of things, what I find is there's actually something far more beautiful. So instead of this perspective of, if you will, taking divine spirit and checking the human boxes that we think we need to fill in order to be happy. So basically, today's episode, my lovely little humans, is really kind of looking at the last couple ones where we really don't know what makes us happy because we cannot predict that. Thank you, Billie Eilish. We appreciate your very candid lesson helping us see that. And B, if we look at last week, that so many times when we follow and allow spirit, angels, or just energy, God, whatnot, to guide us, to truly guide us, we have the ability to find far more powerful, beautiful, divine, joyous outcomes. Now, little asterisk sign right here, footnote, if you will. I often find when I'm working with my lovely little babies and we're doing our little Reiki session, sometimes it's like, oh, you have some stuff that you need to heal in order for you to get to that beautiful divine place. So usually like people will come in and they'll have their intentions for me and for spirit, and we'll be like, yeah, let's do that. And then spirit will basically take people back to maybe a memory or a thing that happened and kind of show us, oh, well, you're kind of stuck in some stuff and we need to heal that before we can unleash all of your beautiful energy. So let's just take this from the top again. I want you to imagine there's something far cooler than manifesting. Manifesting is good. Yep, the current Uber Eats of like ordering from divine and basically saying, I'd like to get that dropped off within the next 15 is a little bit of our current way that we look at the divine. I'm saying, ooh, something far cooler can happen, something far more magnificent. And truthfully, when we mostly manifest, we kind of are still on, yeah, the uneven playing field, because we are trying to, in our little brain that is basically been socialized to move upwards this society. So we think if we have those things, we will be more, if you will, divine. Just because divine basically gave us maybe a parking spot. Ooh, oh, I got that. I am manifesting my parking spots. All of it so freaking awesome. But there's a cooler game that I'm inviting you to. Yes, ma'am. One that actually truly ignites the fullness of your body and your spirit and your mind to harness an adventure that is beyond, beyond, beyond. Let's just say in our little tiny example, you're asking to like manifest to become some sort of, actor for a TV show, and you're really trying to manifest that and you get the role. But what divine wanted was something far more powerful, where your speaking abilities in your present might have like led you to a far more profound, greater career as an actor, or even something far more profound where you are maybe leading and doing things with your skills that take people to really cool places. So we got to be careful. I mean, it's okay. Go for it. But just know, like in the back of your head, like maybe manifesting is not all there is for us. Maybe this idea of serving up to spirit, a request to ultimately become our best selves, is where, we think we want to go to the ball, but then we can actually instead become one of the princesses or something like that. So we are going to look into the science of manifesting and then the science of prayer and just where that takes us. Okay, so let's look at, if you will, the science and neuroscience of manifesting, which is very popular right now and can be really cool because we're playing with principles that you are your own author of your life. Yay for all of us. So if we look at manifesting, the very first thing we do is we kind of like set up, if you will, our brain, our cognitive functioning, and we kind of prime it. So you begin to visualize something repeatedly. Your brain begins to start to look for those images and match them. You begin to behaviorally activate yourself. Maybe this is potentially regulating or picturing yourself in the future moment. Yay, good for that. And in that sort of with the behavior is this way that potentially also is the emotional regulation of giving ourselves more positive vibes, putting it in a way where we are ultimately trying to match our behavior and our emotion with this idea of what we see, cognitive priming, and kind of get this blend of a vibration. And I want you to know straight up, that shit is true, that shit will happen, that shit is manifesting, right? But here is the little catch. The catch is basically already, you may or may not know, you do create your own reality. And a lot of what I teach in Beauty Flip is like, hello, look at the reality you are creating, because you're creating this crazy uneven playing field. So 1, you do create your own reality. 2, you are the source. And 3, you align a vibration. Yeah. And you must attract outcomes. That's fab. But it is also one little, if you will, step of what is a greater possibility with your relationship with the divine. Now, let's take a look at prayer, shall we? In the science of prayer, when we begin to pray and actually potentially work, even like with me, someone who is doing, if you will, I would call it like maybe prayer in action healing facilitation, what we're doing is we're co-regulating with a higher power. I love that. And in our body, actually, scientifically, this allows our parasympathetic nervous system to calm down. Ooh. It reduces our cortisol and it increases our resilience as well as our trust and potentially looking for how we see humans. The relational neurobiology of prayer is basically that it underlines and hearkens to this place where we are wired for connection. So prayer actually taps into the circuits that are used for attachment and bonding, feeling held and feeling guided. So when we do that, we are in a relational space, whereas often when we're in a manifesting space, we're kind of more solo and kind of like asking divine to just take an order. The third thing that is happening when we're praying is that we ultimately get a larger context for things. Because our parasympathetic nervous system calms down, and this way that we sort of allow ourselves to, if you will, surrender to higher power, whatever that may be for you, it allows for us to see that potentially we are just one of so many aspects of this divine world that we live in. And often in that meaning perspective and that surrender, it gives us maybe more moral and ethical grounding, because we tend to surrender to potentially higher things. And if, like, you're working with me and we're doing some Reiki and we're doing some healing and we're opening up these really big prayer spaces, we often see how everything is interconnected, and that something that you had maybe done 4 or 5 years ago might still be in your way because the vibration of that act or belief is causing you to still act and believe in a certain way today. So by prayer and meditation and Reiki healing, these things allow for a natural surrender of things that maybe you've outgrown, that you don't need anymore. Okay, but let's say there's more. So I don't think that this was the intent when people started talking about manifesting, and I do trust that anyone who is guiding people in manifesting, they too are working with some level of divine spirit, and they too are guided. But if we just look at what is the tenor right now of manifesting, it is a little bit like, hey, I want to create my life, and hey, divine, you're here to make it so. In that, please know, unlike prayer or Reiki meditation or Reiki healing, what you're missing is looking at how did you, if you will, attract the vibrations that might be keeping your thought patterns and your emotional patterns, or potentially even your physical life, in a certain way. Instead, what you're doing is you're kind of like putting up an order to, if you will, spirit and the divine, and telling them how they need to change your world. Well, inadvertently, this can cause for some people a level of which they blame or shame themselves if manifesting doesn't turn out the way they want. Ooh, yeah. So where it could have, like, if you will, a little bit of an edge to it where you're like, damn, I manifested this and now I'm unhappy. I'm going to tell you right now, I have a client and she manifested a certain way that she wanted her dating life to go. And when she told me, I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, no, that's what you asked for. And she thought it was going to be all great because she had a fairy tale moment of like wanting to, if you will, first be friends with people and then date. But she's finding herself like constantly in the friend zone and not quite knowing what to do with that. And I'm like, girl, let's like unlock this sort of, if you will, order taking and step into a place of like, what is the energy of love and what's there for you, and if we need to heal something. And so we're kind of undoing some of her, if you will, order taking around manifesting, around dating. Also with manifesting, it does kind of come from a more like individualistic, selfish place, tends to ignore the outer world and how you are a part of that. And it certainly ignores something that I so believe in, which we're going to do this episode soon, grace. It treats the universe, I already said this, like a vending machine. Oh my God, we are not here to like order from God what we need. And in that vending machine, when it doesn't turn out exactly like we wanted to, we then also tend to not just blame ourselves, but we tend to blame spirit and the divine. And ooh, lordy, lordy, if we all just look around, we have people who are like, when they get something saying, see, God loves me more. And when someone doesn't get something, they're like, ooh, I must not be loved by God. And I'm just going to tell you right now, none of that is true. Both of those circumstances are not true. We're all equally loved. We're all equally held by the divine. So in this lovely little manifesting world, there's one other thing besides our little vending machine and blame scenarios going on. It keeps us stuck on the playing field. Yeah, it keeps us striving. It's kind of like a hyped up little engine that we need to get moving, make it happen, because we are going to manifest. I'm going to manifest this and that and the other. And before you know it, we feel like all we can do is stay amped up. And I promise you, you are not built only for one mode. You are built for all the modes. If the divine or God wanted only one mode, they, he, she, whatevs, would have designed you to just be one thing. But you are this magnificent aspect of a kaleidoscope of feelings and thoughts and ideas. And you, in your kaleidoscopiness, have the opportunity to discover and play and find everything, anywhere, all the time. And you might discover something in the depth of despair or in the greatest little ampy little moment. But it's not the only way when you're amped to find what it is that you want with your life. Okay, we have one more place to go, and then we'll bring this baby home. What I love about prayer or meditation or healing, Reiki healing in any way, if it comes with partnership with angels and divine God, is that it is actually transcendental. So what I mean by this is that it is a place where we transcend our current reality and potentially discover far more powerful ways of seeing the world. In this, it is a place where we then, as I said before, potentially surrender into a partnership with God and divine, potential a partnership with angels, where we allow ourselves to soften and be guided. And potentially our conversations are no longer order taking, but in ways of discovery together with our co-creator. And we begin to see, wow, that this is an amazing universe. And it doesn't matter if perhaps we're manifesting the long list of things that we think we need to get ahead. So I'm going to give you a little story of what I think is a great example of someone who basically thought he needed something from the divine and then learned, in fact, actually, he was the divine. So this is, if you will, a story from the Zen tradition, and it is known as the story of the monk and the lantern. So one night when it was very dark outside, a young monk and his teacher were walking back, if you will, to the monastery. And the monk was carrying the lantern, and suddenly a big old gust of wind blew out the lantern. And the monk panicked, and he could not see the path. And he begged his teacher to relight it. And the teacher said, "No, I will not." He said, "You must walk." And the monk at first was so upset, if you will, kind of asking for his teacher to just manifest some light. And the teacher said, "No, I will not." And then after some protest, the monk began to walk. And the monk found himself quieting and actually found himself within the nature of the evening and listened to the beautiful birds, and his eyes began to adjust, and he realized he was not in some dark territory, but in fact he was among nature and on a beautiful path that he knew before. And his body began to adjust so it could guide him. His eyes began to see more clearly in the very, very dark of night to find the pathway that brought him home. And when he came home, his teacher said, "You believed that the lantern was the only source of light. And if we're going to talk about manifesting, you believe if you only get your orders taken, that is a sign that, the divine loves you." But the teacher went on to say to the monk, "The light is always within you." And I think that's what's important here, is to know that we, in so many ways, in so many different episodes, get very lost in our perception of what this world is. And often, Spirit, the divine, is waiting very, very patiently for you to discover it. But if we are only focusing on basically using Spirit to be our order takers, we are going to miss the greater opportunities to discover the absolute beauty that is within us and the amazing partnership it is to be in prayer and meditation, to use prayer, meditation, and or things like Reiki healing to discover your greater path and to discover the greater opportunities of healing, letting go, honoring maybe things that you had no real sense of what you were honoring, but that leads you to great joys and great journeys, if you will, of the profoundness of being a human being in a very beautiful and divine experience. When anyone comes to me or if I'm coaching them, I always ask for people to use prayer. And in that to, if you will, sort of begin with the biggest and most open truth, meaning not an order, but sort of like willingness to discover how it is that our life is maybe kind of in our way right now. So to begin with an outcome, but surrender to the path. Wow, that's cool. To ask for alignment in that pathway, not just acquisition of what it is that we need. And that truly is an amazing partnership. It allows for us to find ourselves in a non-time space where we discover all sorts of things from this life, from our childhood, from past lives, from moments ago, thought patterns, emotional patterns that are keeping us potentially away from who we divinely are. And often, crazy as it is, we find the most amazing, unexpected answers with the most greatest opportunities to heal, and in that healing, discover our grace and our partnership with the holy and the divine. So if I had to say in closing today, I would say manifesting is, if you will, a way where we say, I create my reality and this is what I want and I know best. And prayer is I co-create my path with something that is far wiser and helps me remember what my greater possibilities and discovery and journey are, so that I am able to become the most divine being that I'm here to be. And with that, I'm going to say, can I get an amen in here? I'll see you next week.
Well, that's all I got for manifesting this Beauty Flip episode. But maybe in a wing and a prayer, you'll all listen and find yourselves in greater divine spaces. See you next week, where we dive into just how powerful you are. Okay, can I have an amen in here? See you next week.